Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Enrique Jevons. Thanks for being on the show, Enrique.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. Just our conversation a little bit before we started recording, and just reading through your bio and getting to know you just a little bit. Enrique has a big story about this huge leap of faith, with a large family and moving into this entrepreneurial world that all of us are contemplating at one time or another, and thinking about if that's the route we should go, for one. But when is it the time to make that big leap of faith? I'm very interested in hearing this story from him and getting to dig in a little bit and how he knew when that time was. But Enrique, thank you so much for your time today and being on the show. Tell the listeners a little more about who you are, and then let's dive in.
Sure. Yeah. So after graduating from college, I went into the hotel industry. That was definitely what I had planned for the rest of my life, and so starting with Hyatt hotels, worked my way up through the management of different departments within the hotel, working a couple of different Hyatt hotels and resorts. I then actually worked at Stanford University for 9 years, both in charge of, at one point, thinking that I might step out of the hotel industry. I got tucked into working at Stanford University as a facilities manager for graduate housing. But then lo and behold, the university decided to build their own hotel because of what they were spending for local hotels, to put up their visiting professors and such. And since I was the hotel guy, I ended up falling back into that and became the general manager of that hotel on campus. Marriott then picked me up as a general manager for one of their hotels. So in the San Francisco Bay Area, I was general manager of Marriott Hotel. And again, thinking that I had made it to the top of the mountain. I was all excited about climbing this mountain and thinking, this is awesome, I'm on top. But then I ended up reading Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, as so many people have over the years. And I realized, crap, I'm on the top of the wrong mountain. Wait a second, I don't want to be on top of this mountain. No, I want to be, I want to be an investor. I want to be self-employed. I want to be a business owner. All the other quadrants, and not just a W-2 employee, just making 3 to 5% better and better every year. I wanted to make huge leaps in my income. And so I decided to put together a business plan because with a family of 5, it's not so easy to make the decision to jump ship from a W-2 job that's that the paycheck's coming every single week, to where, great, it's wonderful that you have self-control and direction of your life, but you have absolutely no guarantee, no safety net. So I put together a business plan and took my time about it. It took 3 years to put together a business plan from the day one, finishing reading the book, to where I actually, day one, left the hotel business and started my property management company and started purchasing properties of my own. I had one, but then weirdly, when I started was moving out of the Bay Area. I cashed out. We cashed out the single family home that we own, plus the one rental, and jumped right in purchasing a 13-unit apartment building. Was my very first purchase. And then very quickly, a couple of weeks later, bought an 8-unit, and then just kept going. The entire time using the BRRRR strategy. Of course, now everybody's talking about the BRRRR strategy, the whole buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. But even though I had no idea the term was coined, back then 12 years ago, but that's exactly what I was doing. So I was buying these properties that needed a lot of fixing up. And I have a good friend who's a flipper. And I said, well, he's asked me, oh, you ever flip? And I said, well, does it count if I flip it to myself? Where, I'm essentially selling it to myself after I've rehabbed it, fixed it up. And he's like, no, it doesn't count. I'll go, well, I'm going through all the exact same process you are. I'm finding these properties that have a lot of upside to them. They're in need of repairs, and so I get them all fixed up, raise the rents, get the valuation up. And in doing so, then instead of selling them, I just refinance them to myself. So so that's what I've been doing now all this time for the last 12 years. The decision, though, I will say, in leaving W-2, a very good job, to go into the vast unknown certainly was a very scary thing to do. So my recommendation with that to people is to prepare. But at some point, you got to pull the trigger, and you can't get into the whole analysis paralysis phase forever, because it is going to take a leap of faith. And it is good, just as with, I would say, any startup company, start business, you definitely want to have as long of a runway as possible, meaning as much cash saved up as possible, to be able to ride you out for a while before you start actually making some income. Because certainly one of the things with property management is it's a very slim margin business. So, great, you go out and get your first client and you start managing a home for them, but you're probably pulling profit-wise only $25, $30 in profit off of that one property per month, assuming that you're taking into account, paying yourself as if you were an employee. So, you can't live off of just one client. You got a whole bunch of clients before you can start to become profitable and such. So the runway is very important to have that savings, but also the exit strategy. So just as it's very important to always know your exit strategy, whether you're purchasing, a property for yourself, or whether you're going in with partnership, or even with the syndication, you got to make sure what is the exit strategy, and does that strategy line up with your own personal timeline. And so with myself, okay, so I had the exit strategy was, if all else failed, that I would indeed go back into the hotel industry, that it was something that I knew well. And there's plenty of hotels around. There's always somebody needing a general manager, so as long as you're willing to relocate. So I did have that kind of parachute, and I had about a year's worth of money saved up so that my family and I could go a year's worth with in savings before I would have to really, start relying on an income. And obviously here, 12 years later, it worked. So it was great. So I definitely highly recommend it to anybody out there who is pulling a full-time job and wondering, whether or not they can do it. Yeah, there's a whole lot of people out there that have done it. I'm one of them, so I can testify to that.
Well, that's a great story, Enrique. And you answered, I was typing out lots of questions and you answered a lot of them, as we went there, which is great. But I know the listener is thinking too, like I want to quit my job so bad, a lot of them, that are trying to get into the real estate business. And I mean, it's a desire of all of us at one time, most likely, unless you just were in real estate at 17 or 18, which very few people are successful, right away, right, with real estate enough to be able to do it and only do that. But however, I wanted to ask you a little about, this business plan that you developed. You came up with a business plan. I think it's so smart. And I wanted to ask you a little about that and help the listener to think through, this plan. We got to plan that, right? I mean, we got to really, especially with a family of 5, we've got to think through this and make sure that we have an exit strategy, or even that parachute like you talked about. And you answered one of my questions, how much should we have saved, or would you recommend? You said a year's worth of living expenses, which I think is very smart. I mean, at least that. But I'd love to hear just maybe if you could elaborate on the business plan.
Sure. So I was lucky enough that just with enough searching online that I was able to pull together several different examples of business plans that people had done. So fortunately, and now, gosh, that again, that's was 15 years ago when I first started doing that research. and there wasn't nearly the volume of information out there that there is now. There are so many sites nowadays that, just enough searching, you'll be able to find enough information, in my opinion. But also, while I did it on my own, my recommendation, though, to others is certainly to network and speak with others who have already done it. Find somebody who's already done it so that you can find out from that person, or as many people as you can, what went well for them, what mistakes did they make, so that you're not making the same mistakes that they make. Certainly the more planning you can do, the fewer mistakes you're going to make. So you got to realize, it's not going to be perfect, and there are going to be mistakes that are going to be made. But it's interesting to me how some people will put so much money, for example, into the learning process where they're paying $25,000 to become part of these guru memberships and stuff, and those can be great for some people who need that motivation, perhaps, in addition to some of the skill set. But if you have enough motivation already, you don't necessarily need somebody to motivate you, then I would say try and focus on meeting somebody who is a step ahead of you, or has done exactly what you're planning on doing, and then focus in on that. And focus is, I think, important too in putting together the business plan, because oftentimes I'll meet people at meetup events and things like that and ask, well, tell me, what do you do? Oh, I do everything, they say. I'm like, what? Oh, I'm a wholesaler, and I'm a flipper, and I buy and hold, and I'm like, really? And I'm doing notes. You're doing everything? Well, to me, then they're probably not very good at any particular thing.
Right.
I'm all for various sources of income, but I also think you need to specialize. For myself, property management became my specialty. But you really want to focus in on exactly, the thing that excites you and where you think you might have your competitive advantage over others.
What or maybe a couple things on that business plan that the listener can think about, like, was it like some goals that you need to get it done right away? Was it like, okay, here's where we need to be in 6 months? Or was this, I need to think about developing these processes? Or, I guess what were a couple maybe key things that we need to have on our business plan, or maybe even things that of now that you wish you had known then?
Yeah, certainly. One of the parts of the business plan is going to be an income statement. So you're going to need to produce a projected income statement. That income statement is you're going to want to show over a time period. So I made one that was showing over specifically years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I skipped over and did a 10-year on it, and I think that's where I ended it. I didn't go beyond that. And so I specifically laid out all of the income, all of the, categorized out all of the expenses and what I could, reasonably project for years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then year 10 was more of a bigger kind of a guess at that point, because there's so many variables that come into play, with the market and all. It's hard to say specifically, but it did kind of show me how long I thought I could get, is it reasonable to get there? And then, of course, you always want to be very conservative with the income numbers. Don't try and make the numbers, or don't force the numbers to fit what you need them to be. You need to see, are the numbers going to work for what you need? So if you decide, okay, you know what? In order to live, I need $10,000 a month. I need $120,000 in net income, right? So if you figure out, no, I just can't figure out a way to do that, so I'm just going to project my gross income is going to be high enough to accommodate that number. I would say, no, don't do that. You got to be realistic, and you try and be more than realistic. Be very conservative on the income numbers, because you just don't know, and it does always seem that there's stuff that comes up, obstacles, hurdles that come up along the way, and you don't realize until you're really getting into it.
So did you find that number and then kind of reverse engineer into,
Yeah.
well, this is how we're going to make
Well,
this happen?
I put out based on what other property management companies were bringing in their early days. In both of what I was able to find online, but there were some other profit and loss statements from property management companies out there, some public ones and such, and so I was able to get some numbers, and so I went based on that, and I based it on how quickly I thought I could ramp up based on other people's experiences to determine. And then I looked at it and decided, okay, is this enough money that it's worth me leaving my job for? I did not reverse engineer it back. I just looked for, is this a workable thing?
So you read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then you realized, well, yeah, I should be in real estate, and so how long after reading that book that you went full time?
Yeah, so what I realized is that I really wanted to first, so I wanted to get into the other quadrants. I knew I didn't have enough money that I could just go straight into becoming an investor. That would be nice if I just had enough money that all I had to do was make investments and sit back and watch the money grow, and hopefully, I get to that goal. Certainly that's my retirement goal, right? But I did decide that I first wanted to become a business owner, but not necessarily just working for myself, like let's say like a dentist or, an independent contractor, because then, when you're out sick or your income then drops to zero. So I didn't want to go just become, for example, a real estate agent, because, if you're not working, your income drops to zero. I wanted to actually own a business such that even though I'm on vacation or take time off, that the business is still operating and running, and I'm still bringing in some money there. So that's why I decided to go that direction. I would have loved to have gone into the hotel industry, but the hotel industry is so capital intensive that I just didn't have nearly the amount of money to go there. So apartments, multifamily housing was the next best thing. And so that's the reason that I went into multifamily housing. I do have some single family homes only because they were screaming deals, but predominantly I've always got my eyes and ears out open for multifamily properties. And that's why I continue to purchase to this day.
One thing that has made me successful is something that most people don't think of. It's the way that I've branded myself online. If you want to brand yourself to raise more capital, then I suggest working with my friend Adam Adams. So go ahead, scroll down, and find the link in the show notes. So when you made the decision to go full time, to leave the Marriott position, the W-2, which we're taught as we're most of us, the way we're raised, we're taught that it's safe and secure, right? Like, quote, safe and secure. And then, then we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's not what I thought. It changes our thinking, starts to anyway. And it did me as well, amongst numerous other books. But any other ways that, or what was it, when you knew that it was time, what, I guess, I think a lot of listeners are in that position. Like, okay, how do I know? I know we've talked about, like, we need a business plan, which is so smart. We got a plan. We need an exit strategy. If it doesn't work, how long can I make it till I have to do something else? Right. And then I got to have an exit strategy. How am I going to go back to a W-2 for a while, at least, so I can make ends meet, but how did you know? Was it that you had enough properties, you already had your management company established, or, you already had enough income, or some, partly income, or what was it for you?
Yeah, I actually, when I say jump ship, I mean, I really went from zero to, starting my own management company. So I did not start the business on the side. I went from working full-time as a general manager to then working full-time in starting up the business, which in the beginning, of course, then I'm doing everything. Had no employees whatsoever. And I started out without any clients. I just started out with the 13-unit apartment building that I first purchased. So the good thing was that 13-unit apartment building very quickly, and joining a landlord association and then starting to get out there and meet people, network, that I had the credibility of, oh, you've got 13 units, a 13 apartment building. Oh, okay, you must know what you're doing type of thing, even though I just recently acquired it. But it was enough credibility that it allowed me, and then getting, of course, my brokerage license. But that enabled me to seek out and get clients right away with that credibility. Now, as far as the what was the final trigger? It was actually a bit of a push. It might have I might have gone longer than the 3 years of planning that I put together, and had it not been for the market. So what happened is that as general manager, one of the things with Marriott that we do for the upcoming year is I would go out with the sales team, and we're talking to all of our major clients, which in the Bay Area are major clients as far as room blocks go, was Google and Hewlett Packard and Stanford University. And so we met with Google first, and it was 2007, and they said, well, we're actually going to cut back on all our travel for all of our employees for next year, because we're kind of concerned about what's looming on the horizon. And I had a meeting with Hewlett Packard, and they told me the exact same thing. They said, we're really nervous about next year. And so when that happened, I realized, oh, crap. I'd been through the dot-com bust in 91 in the tech industry there in the Bay Area, and the hotel industry was hit really hard, as that's an area for companies to really scale back on their expenditures is on their travel budgets. And I could see it happening again. I thought, oh man, this is bad. And I'm thinking we're at the peak of a housing bubble. I'm thinking the bubble's going to burst. And so that was the catalyst. Fortunately, I made the right decision. And in February 2008 is when I jumped ship, made the transition from hotel GM to buying, starting my company. So that was my catalyst, was that I could see the market turning. I figured, oh man, I better do it now and not wait. For other people, yeah, sometimes it does take a little bit of a push, and so it could be a job loss, or I don't know what that pushes you, right, to decide to change something. But sometimes that's what it takes, is somebody to push you.
Well, in just a minute, I want to know just like maybe one thing that you wish you had known or done at that time that you didn't know that you know now. But before you tell us that, I wonder how many listeners realize that I forgot to read your bio. And so I just quickly, wanted the listeners to know exactly who you are. It just hit me about halfway through that I got excited about your story and just completely bypassed it. But Enrique he's a seasoned investor. He's got more than 20 years of experience with rental properties. Currently owns 73 properties by himself. I mean, that's a pretty big accomplishment, and manages over 1,000 units in Washington State for other investors. He previously, as you've heard, was a general manager for Marriott Hotel in the San Francisco Bay Area. But anyway, thank you again, Enrique. But let's get back to, is there, something that you remember now that, when you made that switch that maybe you didn't know that you know now, or you wish you had have known?
No, at the time of the transition, actually, everything went really well. So I was very happy with that. I wouldn't say that I made any mistakes there. I think looking back, I wish that I would have accelerated some of my decisions. And there have been,
made decisions faster. So made a decision faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So certainly what I've come to realize is that velocity plays such an important part in investing. And so it's a matter of how quickly can I rehab the property. Whereas in the beginning, I would say I was definitely taking my time. I wasn't, I would do things faster. That's probably looking back on it. the biggest difference there. I had just a year ago joined forces with a much larger property management company called Mind Property Management. So Mind Property Management is a company based out of Oakland, California, and they're doing a phenomenal job. They and I were doing things very similar as how they run the companies. I use a lot of freelancers in order to help me manage my company. They're doing the exact same thing. Everything departmentalized. They have their property management structure set up departmentalized and such, but they're a much larger company and therefore have access to just a lot more for me. I was getting to the point where I really needed the additional structure that a larger company had. So for example, an IT department, so I don't have to be the IT guy anymore, and a human resources department, so I don't have to always be the go-to person there. And they have a sales department. They've got every department, a large accounting department with CPAs. I had my bookkeepers with me, but and my CPA doing my private corporate taxes, but this is actual CPAs within the property management part of it. So I just a year ago made that decision to jump on with a much larger company. So I would have done that sooner too. Now that I can see that that things are going well and the growth is going really well. So I think there's really three things that every real estate person needs to be successful in real estate, and that's time, expertise, and money. But if you don't have all three of those, time, expertise, and money, that's okay. You just need to partner with those who do. The partnership could be with a bank, for money, or it can be a private investor, hard money lender, all those various, process. If you don't have the time, but you had the money, but you've got a full-time job, then great. Invest your money with a syndication. Invest your money with partners who do have the time available to be doing the nitty-gritty work there. And the same with expertise. If you don't have the expertise in managing a large apartment building, then I don't think you should. You should, get a partner who does, and that partner can be whether it's a single individual or it's a syndication, with a management company. You want to partner with those people who have those attributes that you lack, and just be really good at, again, what your competitive advantage is. So if your competitive advantage is you have more time available than others, use that to your advantage, or maybe you have more money, maybe you have more expertise. Use whatever it is that you got.
That's great advice. I mean, because it's so much a team sport. And if you're not ready to find some good partners, then and build a team, ultimately it's going to be difficult to do everything yourself, or it's going to be hard to scale, right? And Enrique and I are going to do another show about how he uses VAs from all over the world, virtual assistants, to manage lots of things, I assume. And I've done that as well. I've done different shows about it. I'm looking forward to hearing your techniques and helping the listeners with that. And that's a team. That's other experts, right? But a few questions, Enrique, before we run out of time. So just quickly, how are you prepared for this potential downturn that everyone's talking about?
Yeah, so I actually don't worry about it. With the market's going up, the market's going down, that's okay. I've got a plan. And so as long as I got a plan as to what you're going to do, then regardless whether it goes up or down is fine. And that's how I really think everybody needs to think about it, and not be dreading, oh no, what if there's a bubble? Okay, so the market's always going to go up and down. And so whether it's this year, next year, 5 years from now, it's going to happen. It's just, historically speaking, the way it goes, you just don't know exactly when. So as far as the market going up, then what's great for me is that I can raise rents, and also I can get higher valuations on the properties that I own, so I can refinance them. So raise the rent and then refinance whenever the market is going up. That's my plan. Now, what happens when the market's going down? It's awesome too, because then everything's on sale. When the market goes down, all of a sudden now you got a lot more buying opportunities available. And what's beautiful about the market going down too is then sellers who have gotten themselves, there's always going to be sellers getting themselves in a tight spot, but that's where you can take advantage and come up with all sorts of creative financing. Like right now, as the market's been so hot in these last couple of years, the seller financing has been all but extinct, right? So, but when the market starts going down, there's all sorts of people who own properties that are going to be willing to do seller financing. So there's those opportunities available. And then just stuff being on sale. So if the market goes down, I'm going to be purchasing. I'm going to be a buyer, and when it goes up, then I'm the rehab or refinancer.
Nice. So what's a way you've recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
Oh my. To apply to what maybe you've got going on is certainly trying to systematize things. I think what happens is I'm always trying to take a look at everything that I do on daily, every day. So every day I'm checking emails, right? And every day I'm answering the phone, and every day I'm doing certain things, certain tasks. Well, a lot of these tasks are very repetitive, and whatever is very repetitive, that's very easy to teach somebody else to do. And so definitely, I think, if you're going to try and do everything yourself, if you think that you're just going to go and you're going to clean every unit and paint every unit, and you're going to, do all the research and buy every unit by yourself, you're going to go extremely slow. And so, as I mentioned, velocity is the one thing that I think is key to gaining additional wealth. It's that you need then to leverage other people's time. You need to leverage other people's money, leverage other people's expertise. So great, I'm an awesome investor. Does it mean that I know how to do change out an electrical panel? No, but that's why I hired an electrician, or all the plumbing. No.
I don't want to know how to do it.
Exactly. I don't need to know all those sort of things. But there are certain, aspects that I can do well. And so great, I use in that to my advantage, and partner up with folks who, it's better if I use them to help me out.
I couldn't agree more. Whether it's a virtual assistant that I'm working with that's really good at podcast art, they're really good at Canva or some kind of software like that. I don't want to be good at Canva. I mean, I don't have time to do that, but I'm going to find an expert, somebody that's really good at it. They're going to do it so much faster than I ever could anyway. But whether it's something like that, or whether it's even something like underwriting, well, I want somebody that's better than me on the team. That, like, am I going to do the underwriting? Well, of course. But, I still want somebody on the team that's just as good or better than I am, whatever it may be. But anyway, we better move on before we run out of time. And what's the one thing that has contributed to your success?
Definitely perseverance. So there are definitely times when not everything is going great. Those are just really, learning opportunities. So then it's, if you can just chalk it up to educational experience, learning opportunities. So not every single purchase that I made has been a home run, but that's okay. If I hit a whole lot of singles, then I'm still, accomplishing my end result, my goal. And so that's okay. I don't have to be perfect every single time.
And tell us how you like to give back.
So giving back, I try to attend. I've spoken at a lot of real estate events, and so it's not like I'm a salesperson trying to sell anybody anything, but I do try and, just like even today here, it's not like I'm trying to promote or sell any product or CD or anything. I'm trying to help out other fellow real estate investors to learn. I do also give, a couple of different charitable organizations. One is, are they related to real estate? One is somewhat, and then also the, for cancer, American Cancer Society, just because of family history with cancer. So those couple of things, whatever a person's passion is, that's where it's important to try and give back. And so mine has been real estate, and helping out with folks to try and get, something going with a cure for cancer.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed just learning more about your story and how you, took that leap from the W-2 to, into real estate full time. You're building your management company and how you've been successful at that. I know so many listeners, including myself. I mean, that leap is, it's so testing, right? I mean, you're so worried about that time. Is it the right time? And I appreciate you sharing your story and just really laying out some things we need to know about a business plan and exit strategy and even how much, you recommended having saved up, that year's worth of expenses, which I think, you really think through that, like, how long can you survive when you cut this off, especially if you got a family like yourself. And so thank you so much for your time. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. So certainly, my name is unique enough, which is great. So then anytime you Google me, then you're going to be able to find me. But certainly, you can email me, enrique.jevons@mind.co, which is mind.co. But you can reach me on Facebook. I'm on Bigger Pockets as well. So you can find me through Bigger Pockets and send me messages that way as well.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by Life Bridge Capital. Life Bridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. Life Bridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.